little cruise in Hanoi. She is in Vietnam on her second honeymoon or something with her husband, having a fantastic time. So Doriandra was kind enough to step up and offer to take the minutes and do the attendance. So it's important for everyone, please, to make sure to send Doriandra your name, and whether you work, live, or own property in the Whitaker for our attendance. If you look to the right, you can see there's a little where it says chat with everyone, or let me see. So Doriandra, can they send you a chat themselves?
No, it has to just be in our group chat here.
Yeah, we can't do that due to Zoom anymore, right?
Yeah, correct. So
Right.
if everyone can just put it in the group chat and we'll be good to go.
Fantastic. Okay. So the first 10 minutes or so are for a public comment. If you would like, if you have something you want to say, you have a question, whatever, if you just look to the right, actually, if you look down below, you see the little hand at the bottom. You just click on that little hand at the bottom of your screen and it raises your hand up where your name is, and then we'll know to call on you. We will put you in the chat if there's more than one person that wants to talk. So we'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you're on a phone or if you've called in, then just raise your hand up so that we can see you, or say your name, and we'll make sure that we get your name in the chat. So the first 10 minutes is for public comments. Do we have any public comment today? Hi, Gary. I think you're on mute. Gary, you're on mute, so we can't hear you.
There we go. Now I'm not.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I live in the community on Polk and 5th. And I've been here for 25 years. Boy, the time flies. But I ran into you about October, and you said there was some grant money available that we just got. Like 700,000 or something. I don't remember the number. And I sent a request to you, and you forwarded it to Doriandra. I think you said Doriandra was the person in charge of grants.
Correct.
And so,
Janet, can you please mute yourself?
I'm trying.
We can hear the wind blowing through.
oh,
Go ahead, Gary.
it's a bad connection as far as my hearing. Can you
No,
hear me?
you're good. You're
Oh.
good, Gary.
Oh, okay. So anyway, I sent some requests and I sent you emails and some, I don't know if they got forwarded, but I never heard anything back. And I was just wondering what the status of all that money sitting around waiting for us to use is. Or
So
is
you know
there?
what? That is a very good question. And we're going to talk about that very thing tonight. I don't know if you saw the agenda, but it's on the agenda to talk about the grant. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
as you could imagine in today, with today's administration, that it's a little crazy, and we were supposed to have the money in October, and they still have not released the funds yet, but they have told us that, yes, we have been awarded the money, but we still don't have it.
Okay.
So that's
But
what
I
hold
never
up.
heard
But I
anything back.
did check to make sure that your name was on the list, and Doriandra is here with us, and she told me absolutely that your name is on there.
Okay. I didn't know that. This is the first I heard of it.
So I thought I emailed you back the first
No.
couple times.
Not a word from anybody. But here we are.
Okay. Well, we're still waiting. We're going to talk about that tonight.
Okay, then I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and please feel free to stay with us and
I'm gonna stay.
hear what we have to say.
This is interesting.
Janet, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I heard today, rather, my daughter related to me that the city is passing another tax, much like the fire tax, for its homeowners for law enforcement. They would like to go ahead and hire 25 more law enforcement officers to enforce some of the code or policies or whatever. And I'm very much opposed. I am taxed right down to the ground right now. And I think it'd be worthy for WCC to make a statement about most of us can't afford any more taxes.
Right.
That's all
Well,
I
that's a great idea, and perhaps we could ask them to come and tell us exactly why they are
Yeah.
talking about doing another tax.
Yeah.
I
Has
can-
anyone else heard of that news as yet? Or I the only, my daughter and I, the only two? Okay, that's all.
All right. Thank you. All right. Is there any more public comment? Fantastic. So with that being said, okay, Tim, you have your hands raised. Go ahead. You got to take
Yeah, you
yourself
have to
off.
unmute
You're
yourself.
on mute, Tim. Unmute yourself.
Learning. We got me back. We got me.
There we go.
Okay. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, I don't know what I have to say really, and how I'm going to say it. But I just want to take this time to say something about some of the concerns I have just about the Whitaker Community Council and what's been going on for the last few years, and some of the key people who have been in positions for a long time. And so it concerns me. It concerns a few people in the neighborhood. I'm sure you've heard it. And also concerns that people had, and I know it's a difficult situation with the homeless in the Washington Jefferson Park, and a letter that WCC, specifically you, Margaret, wrote to the city to try to discourage any kind of activity from neighbors feeding neighbors. And so all those kind of things have been going on, and plus all your relations all the time with the police, with the city itself, and there's still your relations that you continue to have with the city and the cops and everything else that don't really have much of a relationship, maybe with so much with the Whitaker itself. And it seems like those relationships are getting stronger and stronger all the time with your communications with the powers that be. So I just think I have a concern about that. I know other people in the neighborhood also has that concern. And so I think that that's just something I wanted to throw out there and let you know was sort of like bubbling up in my own head. And I think it's something that, I don't know, you just need to hear. So that's about it. Got any questions? Go ahead.
No, I do, just so that you know.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that maybe you'd reach out and ask us some questions, which you haven't done. But I did not write that letter, and I learned a very valuable lesson when I put my name at the bottom of it as the chair.
That's how come we thought.
That letter I did not write. That letter, the entire board at the time. Hold on a second. That at the time, I would look to see who was on the board at that time. And the entire board voted on that letter, and everyone voted to send it except for there was one abstention. And you can look back, it's in the minutes. It's also, there's a video of it as well, about what occurred and how that occurred. And after that, we invited them to come to a meeting. And you can see what happened at the meeting. And not only that, we also asked to meet with Lisa face to face and ended up meeting with someone else. So there's a whole lot
She
more.
did go to that. She was at that meeting. She came
Oh,
there
were you
late.
at that meeting?
No, but I watched the video, and I
Okay.
talked to Lisa, and she did mention that she showed up late, and people didn't feel like Neighbors Feeding Neighbors was not represented, but it was represented. She just arrived late, and other people arrived there also. And I know
Oh,
a guy.
it was filled with support for Neighbors Feeding Neighbors.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
Can
it
I
was
just,
that was the
jump-
majority of the meeting was was people that are in support of Neighbors Feeding Neighbors talking. And actually,
in really quick, because I'd like to make a point about process, because I think that's, it's the joy of knowing how to unmute and mute yourself and all of that stuff. Tim, I hear you, and I think you know what side of that issue my sympathies lie with. That said, like the Whitaker Community Council is a quasi-governmental imbued structure. Like the neighborhood organizations are, and we're a funny one because we have the nonprofit that does all of the really great things like the grant that Gary was asking about, that Dori Andrews is going to talk about later, and all of the grants we did for like that she did with like the container gardens and the disaster stuff. So that's the nonprofit side. But like the role, like there's no way to not engage with the city, because that's like the whole point of what this thing does. Like it's just a point of process that, and I am not trying to diminish your critiques of this entity being a way to facilitate that conversation, and whether or not is reflective of what everyone feels. There's certainly a lot to talk about there, and elections are next month, but there's also the process of just the way votes work for this kind of thing, and sometimes also it's really hard to. Everyone on the council is a volunteer. I don't always read everything I'm supposed to as well as I'm supposed to. So I think trying to get people who are active and engaged and really putting forth a little bit more compassion and connection to the neighborhood will be really good in this next election cycle if possible. So I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about by the nature of a neighborhood association.
Right. Well, I think there's a balance that needs to happen. And I think you're also a conduit, supposedly, for this neighborhood and the voices of this neighborhood to that relationship you have with the city. And it seems like to me it's just been a little bit not so balanced as it has sometimes in the past, or maybe it's gone a little bit a different direction than it has in the past. But I think that's what I'm talking about, is like there's that interface that I don't feel like we really have at this point. And I think you're going in a dangerous sort of direction where there's a lot of people at odds with what's happening. So just a heads up.
thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for your comment. And I understand exactly what you're talking about. And like I said, I learned a lot with that with what happened there. And I did some stuff on my own with them, although we don't need to get into that. But as someone who lives here, not as a Whitaker Community Council member, but as a resident of the Whitaker, I tried to do some things with them and ended up eventually, after about 2 months, chatting with Gabe, and we both agreed that, he agreed that it would be better to just let them do what they need to do. And that was that. And that's the last time we talked about it. And that's what I promised him.
Gabe Scott?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more than, like I said, I should have never signed that letter. Came from the board and it was voted on. It was not from me.
Well, maybe there could be another.
I'm sorry?
Maybe there could be another vote about how the board feels.
Well, anything is possible in the future. That's for sure. Do we have any more comments about that? Okay, so right now I am going to hand it over to Doriandra. And Doriandra is going to talk about what's happening with the Healthy Homes Grant.
Great. Thanks, Margaret. First, I'm still taking some attendance here. Looks like Derek Baker. Can you identify if you live, work, or own property in the Whitaker for us? Either by putting it in the chat or just popping in right now.
No, I do not. I'm just listening in.
Okay.
I,
Okay. Glad you're here. No worries. Okay. And then we've got SLD. Is that Susan Detroit?
Yep.
Hi,
Yes, ma'am.
Susan. Awesome. Okay. All right. Perfect. And then we've got another person that came in on the phone. Might that be Jack?
No, Jack is not going to join us tonight. He
Oh.
had another commitment.
Okay. Well, if whoever's on the phone could just speak up and let us know your name and if you live or work or own property in the Whitaker.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi.
Okay. Yeah, hi. My name is Melissa. I live over on Jackson Street, between 3rd and 4th.
Great. Are you okay with sharing your last name? For our attendees?
Do I have to?
No.
No, yeah, that's okay. I'll just put you down as
Okay.
Melissa. Thank you for being here.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. So we are going to talk about the Healthy Homes. This is a super exciting project that has been delayed now since October. So we keep getting all excited about it. And then we have another kind of wait process, but we are getting closer. I just want to share the details of it tonight and let folks know what's coming for it. We're going to go ahead and get the application live on social media, most likely by end of week. And I'll go ahead and post it here for folks to see if they would like to check it out. And I'll also put it in the chat. And the takeaway of this grant is a large bill that was passed to work on improving the livability and health of homes. So our organization was granted $750,000 to do that. So we will be taking recipients, there you go, the application's in the chat for everyone, on a case-by-case basis. And it's a very, it's a pretty easy process to do. There's one eligibility requirement, and that is that either the tenant or homeowner needs to be below the 80% average median index, which is actually quite generous. Usually for programs like this, it's 30%. So this gives folks a nice range to apply. So the basics of what we can do, I'm going to share that for you all right here in the screen, if you'd like to take a look. There are 3 categories that are applicable. And let's see, can you all see this screen? Let me see if I can make it bigger for everyone. Okay, it doesn't seem to want to get bigger, so I'll go ahead and read through them. But the categories are, again, just really focused on health and safety in the Whitaker. So if you have a home or you live in a home that has allergy or toxin issues, we're going to work on that remediation. So we'll be removing either asthmatic or allergen triggers. And that can be achieved through getting new carpets or flooring that doesn't hold allergens. We can also provide you with air purifier systems. If we find mold or other toxins that would be stuck in the drywall or part of the actual structure of the home, we can replace those elements for you. And we'll also be working on mold, lead paint, or asbestos remediation. So these are big targets, but we hope that this will help the overall health. We're also focused on our beloved seniors and folks with disabilities that need some improvement in their houses for mobility. So if you need a wheelchair ramp or if you need widened doorways or pathways to get to the house, or any number of home access points, we'll be able to provide that for you. We'll also do basic mobility issues, improvements like grab bars or entryway grab bars so that when you're getting in and out of a wheelchair, it can be easier for you. We can also do structural or safety improvements that would increase your accessibility or visibility within the house. So again, creating safety and increasing mobility. Then we have kind of a general broader category, which is termed health and safety upgrades. And these are a little bit wider. This would include things like getting new carbon monoxide or fire alarms in the home, adding the basic things like fire extinguishers, or if you have a lot of debris that's either in the house or outside, can remove that for you to keep a fire safe and also mobility safer landscape for you. Also, folks have sometimes a lot of older homes have aluminum windows or those single pane. We're going to be replacing those with double pane solid vinyl windows, and that goes for doors as well, which will provide safer entry and also protect from wildfire smoke and keep heating in and keep cool in when you need it. So we'll also be doing things like installation of smoke filtration systems. We can do ventilation or reduction of pathways for air infiltration, and also a general category on improvements that make homes more fire resistant. So one of the major parts of this too is to look at the outdated HVAC systems that many of our homes have. They're really not conducive to energy efficiency or just being comfortable. So we'll be replacing old HVAC systems with better mini splits, they're called. It's a much more efficient system that you just point a remote at and it reduces your energy bills. So those are some of the broad categories. And the hope is that as we go to your home and do the first step, which is a healthy home assessment, which will be performed by a licensed contractor, that contractor will really give the home base a scope of what is needed, what could be improved, and then we'll be targeting things that are grant compliant. And a licensed contractor will then begin a scope of work project order for you. From there, we've teamed with our incredible partners at the Eugene Mission, who will be sending out a volunteer team to help homeowners prepare for this work. If we've all had work done in our houses, it can be really startling and upsetting when they're going to do something big and we may have to move furniture or prepare spaces for them. So that's what the Eugene Mission team will be doing in partnership with us, which we're so grateful for. We had, again, anticipated we'd start this back in October. So they have been ready to go since October, and they've been really gracious to mobilize and instead work on picking up trash and working in certain seniors' homes around the Whitaker, people that needed help, like clearing gutters or installing basic things, paint, things like that. So they've been really busy as we waited, and we're excited to finally get them really mobilized. So one of the first groups that we're going to work with, as well as folks that have been in our waiting queue, like Gary Schubert that came on, is an older project and wonderful asset of the Whitaker that was started in part by the Whitaker Community Council, which is the East Blair Housing Co-op. So we'll be going to there and improving those units piece by piece, unit by unit. So that'll be a great first start for us. And as well, we'll be also taking applications from the community, and we'll just take those case by case. Now, this grant has a biennium life of 3 years. So again, because we started, we were still waiting for funding. We've lost some time, but we have contractors ready to get going, and we will just be, really efficiently using our time to make sure that everyone can be served in this process. Now, the other part of this that's important is, there are certain elements of the grant compliance that we'll be asking folks to help us do. when Oregon Health Authority produces these grants, their overall goal is to improve public health equity for vulnerable communities. And so by doing that, they want to gather demographics and understand who they're serving. So if you do receive services from this grant, we will ask you to help us understand the demographics of your home. And none of those questions are mandatory, but it's very helpful to understand what is going on in the Whitaker, and that aggregate data will be used to create more policy and hopefully more House bills that continue to improve the safety and well-being of our community. So we would hope that you'd participate in that. And then we'll also be doing a satisfaction survey to learn about your experience with the contractors, with me, our team at WCC, and just how the house project worked for you. So yeah, there's a couple moving parts there. One other really important thing in terms of protecting our renters in the Whitaker, the council was very concerned that we would not run into situations where a landlord would receive these benefits of increased property value and then turn around and remove the tenant. And so we've been working with our lawyer to create a really solid memorandum of understanding, which landlords will be required to sign and uphold. If they violate that, there will be a remediation process to gain back the funds that we have spent on the home. So the whole goal is to protect our renters and to curb the unhoused situation, because it's already so challenging for vulnerable people, and we didn't want to cause more by doing this. So that's a real incredible point of this, and I'm proud that our council, can hold that line for renters. So yeah, if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. The email address that we're going to use for this is whitaker.housing, and I'll go ahead and put that in the chat for you. And if you know of folks that need support, or if you can think of someone, yourself, your neighbor, your tenant, please just shoot us an email and we'll get you in the queue. The main thing too to remember is that in the application that you see there, the average medium income guidelines are there. There's a handy chart, and then there's also a link that you can go to really understand if you qualify in there. And it's essential to understand that most landlords wouldn't qualify for that, but the tenants in the homes, that's who we're working to help. And so it doesn't matter if the landlord doesn't qualify, but the tenant can. And then so we'll be working to support them in their accessibility and health in the rental space. So I think I've covered most of that. Any questions or help I can offer? Go ahead, Margaret, you're muted.
Where are you hiring the people from that, where do the contractors live? And
Yes,
the people that are working on the project, how is this helping the Whitaker?
great question. So when I started writing this grant back in February of 2024, I can't believe how long this has taken. I interviewed several contractors and really was trying to find folks that aligned with the heart and the history of the Whitaker. So one of our contractors is Wedge Contracting. They are in the Whitaker, and they will be our primary contractor. Then we have one other group that's, he doesn't live in the Whitaker, but he has family there and lived part-time there in his youth. So both of these contracting groups have a lot of concern and care and understand both the bugs and the wonderful parts of the Whitaker, or I should say the challenges. So yeah, great people, and we'll be putting that money from the grant back into supporting them. We also will be expanding our staff because it's quite a large project. So we hope to really put that money back into Whitaker hands.
Fantastic. And can you, just one more thing, explain a little bit about the relationship with the mission that you've cultivated and how they tie into this grant?
Yeah, excuse me. They have a program called R Cubed, and that's revitalize, restore, and what's the third R? It's a great word. But anyway, those folks are doing terms, and we want to think of it like as a school term. It's a couple months. Believe it's quarterly, and they are able to select certain classes that can kind of foster their confidence as they re-enter community. And so I worked with the Eugene Mission to create what was called the Healthy Homes program. And so they now, for 2 terms, as we waited for this grant, will come out every Tuesday from 9 to 11 a.m. And again, the initial hope was that they would be supporting homeowners and tenants as they prep for this contracting work. But because we were delayed in receiving funding, they mobilized and really did a whole array of different things. We set them up with seniors that needed work, a lot of residents in the Whitaker that wanted home support, basic yard work, or things that can be overwhelming at times. So they have kept themselves busy as we were in this delay for quite this time. They've done incredible work cleaning up areas near the railroad tracks. They've worked in tandem with the city over at Washington Jefferson Park to remove non-artful graffiti around the park. They've also gone and cleaned specific neighborhoods. They've done great work over at Scoper Gardens to kind of assist in the Whitaker Community Market folks, which is really great because I know that they have a lot of work there to get ready for those huge markets. So yeah, they've been great partners. You may see stuff on our social media. I try to post pictures when they finish a job, and homeowners and tenants always take great pictures of them. So you will see them out and about as we go forward on this. And if we are stalled further, you'll see them out again doing trash or graffiti. And we've got some neat plans coming up where we'll be working with some spaces around the Whitaker that maybe need murals. And so that's our next kind of target as we wait for this grant to start. But to be clear, we are taking applications by the end of this week. So go ahead and get your application into the queue, and because it will take us some time to go through the eligibility requirements, and then you guys that apply first will be first served. So,
All right. Are there any questions? Clarifications? Fantastic, Doriandra. Great job. Way to go. Very exciting stuff.
yeah, thank you. That is exciting.
Your hard work has definitely been appreciated.
Yeah.
So we're running ahead of schedule, which is great. Next on the agenda, so something that we have tried to do at the council level is to work with other neighborhood councils. And I assure you that, what happens in the South Hills is very different than what happens in the Whitaker. I'm excited to tell you all the train song, actually, after years of not having enough participation to have their own neighborhood association, just restarted their own neighborhood association. So they will be part of representing themselves, and they have a lot of the same issues that we do. So we're really excited about that. We actually had talked about annexing Train Song into the Whitaker as far as a neighborhood association, so that they would have their needs met, and so that they could have a place to come and get the support for some of the problems that they experience over there. But it ended up that they found enough people that wanted to participate. So now they have their own, which is a great thing. One thing that we, so I don't know if you guys know, so we're down to 6 board members. That's it. And there's a lot of work to do for 6 board members. Some board members are more active than others. So we have discussed some ways that we could use our time more wisely, be a little bit more feet on the ground, grassroots, how we can do a little bit more outreach and actually cover people that are feeling underserved in our neighborhood. So in doing that, what we had discussed is that instead of having a meeting once a month, an in-person general meeting, that we go back to what our charter says and that we have a meeting once a quarter. And that at that quarterly meeting, what we do is we take committees, for instance, the Health and Safety Committee that Doriandra runs that is doing the grants right now. We're going to talk in a minute about what's happening with the Pacific Coast Intermodal Port, having a committee regarding that. So rather than getting together and throwing together a haphazard meeting once a month and not getting a lot of participation, that we actually get a meeting or a committee of people that live in the Whitaker as well as board members, where you can focus on something that really means something to you, something that you can sink your teeth into, that you have a little bit of heart about. Because it doesn't matter what the committee is, if it affects the Whitaker, then it's welcome on the council. So I want to know what you all think about going to quarterly general meetings and then having smaller committee meetings on a monthly basis and then bringing that back to the board once a quarter. Any questions about, does that make sense what I said? Jen?
Yeah, and another benefit of this, I think, is that you don't have to be elected to be on a committee and serve on a committee. So there's not as much of a barrier to participate, and you can also focus on the things that you care about, right? So it's like, because we accept anyone who shows up to the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting. We
Correct.
don't vote on stuff, but like everyone gets to be pretty engaged in the work.
Correct. And something else, and I read over the charter again today just to be sure. And I see you, Derek. Hold on one second. One thing too about being on a committee and running committees is that if a committee votes on something, so for the most part, depending, if we're talking about money, if we're talking about nonprofit items, if we're talking about things like that, you have to be a board member to vote. However, if you are on a committee, and let's say you're on a committee about about what Union Pacific wants to do, and as a committee, you guys decide, okay, we want to take this, this, and this to the board and talk about these things. Even if you're not on the board, but you're there and you're on that committee, you have the opportunity to vote as someone that lives, owns, or rents in the Whitaker. So what this does is it also opens up the gates so that more people can participate, if that makes sense. Derek?
Yeah, being a business owner and belonging to a lot of networking groups and always trying to, drum up new clients, often very busy with those networking groups, and a lot of them take up a lot of time. So I am all for going to fewer meetings and allowing me to maybe immerse myself and spend more time with these side projects or sub projects, I guess. I would be all for that quarterly meetings. And then, if we have to have an emergency meeting in between, we can always do it.
Correct. Yeah, that's the nice thing. Just so, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, but June 11th, we've scheduled a big meeting regarding the Janet has done a fantastic job, and she got a hold of someone in Coos Bay at the Pacific Coast Intermodal Port, and someone who's in charge of that port that's going to affect our railroad here and the amount of trains that are going through the Whitaker. She's going to talk about that in a minute, but there's no reason that we can't have a committee just for that. That we can have a committee that talks about the unhoused. And then people just bring it back to the board and we talk about it at once a quarter at a general meeting where maybe we can get more participation. And it will also free up a little time for people that want to be on the board. Because right now it is a big commitment to have 2 meetings a month. Plus, if you're on a committee, that's another meeting. So we're looking to get more out of what you're passionate about. Are there any other comments about that? Is there anyone opposed to doing that? Okay, fantastic. So we will readdress that next month. So now what we're going to do is we are going, I don't know how many people are familiar. We've made some posts. Actually, last October, November, we got an email from Coos Bay stating that they were putting in, they're working with Union Pacific and building the new port, that they are going to expand the trains. And that instead of having the trains that we have now, they're going to be double-decker trains, and they're going to be a mile long, and we're going to have about 10 of them a day. So, originally, the Health and Safety Committee meeting has been working on this, and they did a great job. They went to a couple of online meetings, brought some information back. They were at a meeting, and I know that Janet goes to the Public Health and Safety. Janet is on the board, and Janet ran with some of the information and got a hold of somebody who works for Coos Bay. And Janet, you want to tell us a little bit about what's happening with that?
Sorry, I've got dogs that are playing. Yeah, the people I've talked to are, if, like I said last night, if you look at this like a 3 or 4-legged stool, when the rail industry wants to make some changes, they pretty much get them. At best, the community can mitigate some of the concerns and possibly address it prior to the implementation of the rail doing what it's planning to do. And as such, as I started to say, if you look at it as a 4-legged stool, the 4 legs, you have the community, you have your local governance, you have the rail. In this case, there are 3 different rails, and the 4th piece being the Federal Railroad Administration, that kind of puts forward the schema for quiet zones, which this would be kind of a 2-transactional setup. I do believe that the city's hoping to get support from Union Pacific in granting or allowing the switch out of the current safety gates. The safety gates are, I guess, already paid for by the city. However, in talking with the Federal Railroad Administration rail inspector, he's been quite busy out here checking the rails, I guess, to make sure the integrity, because they're going to have double the weight load. And he tells me that one of the things that Union Pacific is reluctant to trade out their gates for what the city hopes to achieve by implementing those safety gates that they've already have purchased, is that Union Pacific will then acquiesce their sole autonomy over those gates, and now therefore, if they approve it, the quiet zone, undertake the cost and maintenance of those newer gates, and one of which would be the additional training, because operationally they're a little different. Also, one thing, Union Pacific, they're very sovereign and very independent, and from what he tells me, and the Union Pacific Public Relations Senior Director kind of indicated to me also, is the relationship with the city and the rail industry is not so hot because they don't see the city as the traffic, do we say, that's on the rail lines. All too often, the messes, the fatalities they've had of late of hitting people on the tracks. They're not too swift. Union Pacific is not too keen on wanting to intertwine their business with how the city does their business. So as I see it from in my talks, brief, is that the city has a huge PR issue and some cleanup on their local codes so that it could be mitigated happily and by clearing the tracks and having some clear definitions and enforcement. I do think that the propensity for the quiet zone to be negotiable and workable could be increased only by and through the city growing up and addressing the things, the issues that are impacting the city, its citizens, and now business and industry and infrastructure. The city needs to, in my opinion, this is what is, get away from social engineering and become more engaged in business and infrastructure engineering. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Thank you, Janet. Jen?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that there are, yes, the quiet zone concerns also, but there are many other concerns with this project. Lots of which include like traffic access to the one hospital that we have remaining. You know, I read through their plan and it doesn't actually seem like they may not need to raise the bridges here. It's mostly the tunnels that they need to expand between here and there. But the environmental cost of idling diesel trains and things like that. So this is something that it'll be really great to talk to them because they are still in this early on phase to address kind of all of the potential issues. So not just quiet, but environmental impact and human flow impact and accessibility to emergency services.
100%. Tim?
Yeah, there's some history of, some fat cats in the county that we're really looking forward to this train happening to Coos Bay because Port of Call exports, especially forests from our region, will be probably sent other places besides where it belongs, which is here. And so that's probably some of the activities that you're going to be seeing is our forests going through our goddamn town to another place that we don't need to see it going to. So it's just a larger picture. And I know the McDougall brothers were totally down with supporting this whole train operation and developing it because they have a big area out in West Eugene where they put their trees and they put their gravel that can be put onto those trains for Coos Bay and probably other destinations. So the larger picture is, again, taking resources out from our area and right through our town. And I don't know what we're going to do about it, but it's just something to think about. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah. And Janet, I appreciate your work trying to get to the bottom of this. And, I realize this is a tricky issue and probably goes back 150 years when our city's namesake founder or whomever decided to put a railroad track right through the center of downtown. And, legacy real estate between the city and Union Pacific, there is 100+ years of history with this. And I just wonder ultimately where things stand on, public say in this. And, I realize the efforts that we're making as a board and Janet with your work, are an effort there, but ultimately I would suspect that the cards are probably much more on UPs and the ports controls. And I hate to be, to come off NIMBY, because I feel like that's, a whole other thing, but this is dangerous. This is really like a pretty significant issue for a city that has a rail track going not just through the Whitaker, but through the downtown core, to the extent that it sounds like they want to be increasing this volume in production. And it's probably going to get real noisy real soon, the more this becomes real. But I think ultimately my question is just like, I encourage us to figure out what involvement even the city of Eugene has, like what say they have in this, because it seems like the cards are not in our communities or our city's favor.
Are you done, Chris?
Yeah.
Thank you. Doriandra?
Yeah, I can kind of help with that, Chris. So in the original email that we got, it was from JTL, which is a public relations firm, which was hired to do a community stakeholders input. And it's very alarming that, excuse me, out of the 67 organizations or cities that were interviewed, meaning, for instance, Stephen and I went and we had a Zoom meeting. We tried to ask questions. There wasn't a lot of data to really answer our questions. But in that meeting, we were able to express our concerns. But that stakeholder group, out of the 67 people, the city of Eugene is not one of them. So this public relations firm interviewed City of Veneta, Mapleton, Coos Bay. So there's a lot of public comment that's missing from our city. And the feedback that we gave on behalf of the Whitaker Community Council was very concentric to the Whitaker's needs. We mentioned we are concerned about safety for our unhoused populations that tend to be very close to the rails. We talked about the fact that how do you get emergency services when you have to go, how do you get out of the Whitaker if you're having a medical crisis or an EMT is trying to take you somewhere? We talked about things like how do children get to Head Start on time? And as well as simply the environmental impact. This community has been compromised by toxins from J.H. Baxter in the water and the air. So we brought the basic things to the table, and many of them were kind of slided out in this stakeholder packet that they gave. So that is very concerning, those elements. But that packet then was given to the Coos Bay Port of Commission, and they held their first big meeting. And Stephen and I tried to get on that meeting, and the sound was terrible. But we experienced, or we heard a lot of concern straight from Coos Bay. They were concerned about their communities being dredged, environmental impacts there. So in my humble opinion, I don't feel like this project has really given the voice of people that will be highly impacted by it. So Stephen knows, can contribute a lot there if he can speak next.
Okay.
I wanted to echo what Tim Lewis had pointed out with the export of trees. And there's a number of major organizations around the world intensely concerned about the transition of energy industry from coal to wood pellets. And California has a couple of projects to build pellet mills, one in the northern Sierra Nevada, one in the southern Sierra Nevada, exporting pellets through Stockton. The Washington State has 2 projects planned or in the planning phases, one in Longview on the Columbia by a company called Drax, who are also consulting with the California people, and another pellet project in up on near Grays Harbor, also for export. so the four components that allow these things to get traction is 1, trees, 2, pellet mills, 3, export facilities, and overseas markets. And we already have the trees, and timber industry is really trying to find more markets for woody biomass rather than leaving trees in the forest to accumulate carbon. It needs pellet mills. Currently, there's only one significant size pellet mill planned, and that's just north of Roseburg in a place called Oakland on I-5. And export facilities, there's already an export storage project and a loading facility in Coos Bay. And these pieces could potentially come together here with this rail line from going through Eugene to Coos Bay could be a significant piece linking these components in Oregon. So the threat that we face from the big biomass energy industry is significant. And that's where Eugene sits in the middle of what large forces are planning. Besides the mile-long double-stack trains and the blockage of downtown Eugene with these long trains going through the switching system, the biomass industry is a big factor in what the plans are here. So a lot of organizations are working on this, and several want to attend any meeting that takes place in the WIT with the people pushing these plans for Coos Bay. So thank you, Tim, for raising that issue. It's very important.
Something that just for information, so I as well have gone and read over all of the stuff. And just so that we're all on the same page, according to what the port says, this is a 5-year plan. And it's going to take 2 years for them to build it, or they're going to plan it for 2 years, build it for 2 years, and then open it in a year. We actually just got an email to the Whitaker Community Council yesterday that said that they were going to start having meetings and that they were going to invite people to come. If you look at the map, and I will post it online tomorrow, so that everyone, you could just click on the link and you can go and see the whole flyer. And if you read what it says that it starts at Coos Bay and it ends in the Whitaker. It ends right at Washington Jefferson Bridge, basically. You can see where the bridge goes over. And for me, when I think about it, and I don't know this for a fact, but this just when I look at it as a big picture, like I told you, Tim, you did all those videos about where they cut all those trees down back there. A lot of that back there is owned by Union Pacific. I did a walking tour with the mayor, with the guy from Union Pacific, our councilman, about 2 or 3 years ago when those people were camped out behind Nelson's and they were threatening him. So we did a walking tour and I took them right back there, but we also walked back by the railroad. If you read what the flyer says, and if you look at the map, they are going to have to build some type of large station in the Whitaker and that big field back there to take those trains, because they're going to take the trains from the port straight to the Whitaker, and then they're going to send them from the Whitaker to wherever they're going in the U.S. That is the plan. And they are double stacked mile-long trains. And yes, all these things are an issue, but it's also an issue is where are they going to put all the containers? You know, they're not just going to go from one train to another. They're building, from what I can see, they're building a rail yard back there. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I would guess. Like I said, I'll post the information that we have. You guys can read it for yourself. Janet did a great job. We have the people from the port. We will be at the mission on June 11th, and they're driving up from Coos Bay. And Thea is working on, she knows people at the railroad very well. She's who got the railroad to come and walk back by the train tracks. So somebody, whoever is responsible from the city, even though the city says they don't know anything, that's a bunch of crap. They know something. So whoever is responsible on the city end, who's responsible on the port end, who's responsible on the Union Pacific end, and also in the flyer, they talk that they have contracted some things out to some private companies to help coordinate whatever happens in the Whitaker. So the goal is to bring all those people into a town hall style meeting and to get them all in the same room at the same time, and to invite Train Song, to invite Bethel Danabo. I don't know if you all watched. They were trying to put a refill yard, a fuel yard in Bethel Danabo back off of Railroad Boulevard there, kind of. And the neighborhood association stopped them. They stopped them by working through the city, by protesting, by having several meetings, and they stopped that from being built right there. Well, they still need that rail yard. They still need a refueling station. I wonder where they plan on putting it. I don't know for sure, but I really think it's important that we find out. So, Janet, did you have a comment?
Yeah, which one mentioned about our timber being exported?
Several people.
Yeah. I remember back when the closure of all of our mills here in Oregon, and it was Bob Packwood that made it where they were taking our raw resources, our beautiful logs, and we have pretty premium timber in the timber industry. I think Oregon has probably among the highest quality timber, but it was Bob Packwood that made it possible. I think it occurred in Coos Bay where they sawed off the bark right there in Coos Bay, loaded them on ships for Asia, and they came back to us as a product. No country worth their salt sells off their raw resources while mills sit idle and people are without those family wage jobs. So to avoid that from happening or continuing to happen, that calls, it's inevitable. Bethel may have temporarily gotten them stopped, but they will get that in one way or another. What is critical for our community to understand is at this planning stage, we have the opportunity to have our concerns heard and mitigated so that it doesn't become just what the rail industry wants. And I think right now it's wise and important for us to realize that, yes, we have concerns about environment that must be addressed. And another thing is with the rail tracks right here, if they have a spillage, we're backed right up to the river. I don't know if we have an evacuation route. We might have someone from CERT come in and address that too. But I'm saying all this to
That's
say
a good
that,
idea.
yes, is that there are businesses that do the understudy on behalf of communities that raise those concerns, and they know how to, lack of a better word, put it together and paper it up and make certain that it's a mitigated solution to the issues while we're still at the planning, while the rail industry is still at the planning stage. If we don't get our act together in this window of time, eventually they're going to have a place and they will come through with it. They may have been temporarily blocked, but that's one thing about industry. When they have a plan, come whatever, they're going to shove it through. So what we must do as community members is be wise and diligent with the what ifs and make certain that in this window of time that we have the opportunity to be heard and our concerns to be factored in, and the solutions into the plan is now. It's looming. So my point is this, is everybody, like tonight, has brought up a number of issues, all wise and good. The railroad industry is complex, and I can't encourage that enough. I did call Salem today, their public works. I Googled how many quiet zones are in the state of Oregon. There's actually one in Westford, not too far. And so I called Salem Public Works, and I'm due to get a call back from the agency that they used to put together. I believe Salem has 3 or 4 quiet zones within that city. So my point in reaching out to Salem with being Region 8, rail industry marks us off in regions, is to get in contact with the vendor that they possibly used that could study together. And Margaret, I don't know if you guys asked if JLT is that kind of business that does.
Well, how much money does it cost, Janet?
Well, here's the other part. Years ago, when I tried to do this, the rail industry had a fund specifically for community engagement because we're up against a David and Goliath. We don't know rail tracks. Right. We don't know jurisdictions. We don't know how the railroad operates. They're very sovereign. And
well, we're going to figure it out, Janet. Yeah. And thank you for all of the work that you've done.
It's twofold what I'm saying is it's wise and good to present all these and have them all collaborated, put together, packaged up so that everybody has a stake in this as a community.
Right. And that's the goal. Tim, did you have something?
Oh, well, I think she was just talking, Janet was just talking about, the bark being cut off trees. And the reason they do that, or Packwood passed that law, or so, I think it was a federal law that was passed, you couldn't process logs, right, off public lands and send them overseas. I mean, you couldn't send raw logs over to overseas off public lands. And so what they decided to do, taking bark off the trees, is processing that those old growth trees. So that's why they take the bark off at the port of call, which isn't much work. It's really not much processing off our natural resources. And then they send it off to the Orient, usually, or Asia. And that's why they cut bark off. And so the machine still gets what they want. And
but the mills all closed down around that time. That's when all the mills closed down. We didn't have the industry anymore.
But you know why? Well, one of the reasons is because there's a lot of machines now in the forest taking jobs. And then also, some of those public lands have already been, a lot of private lands have already been cut. So they're going for the public lands now. So there's reasons why. But I just wanted to give some history of why they cut bark. That's about it.
All right. Well, thank you. And please, everyone, we're gonna, like I said, I'll try to go and put the links up tomorrow so you can go and read the information that we do have, and update yourself. You can see the map. It ends up right in the Whitaker, and it talks about, what it's going to be a whole lot more than just a bunch of mile-long trains. Before I'm done, actually, I would like to, Derek, can you tell the story that you told me the other day? And then we're going to leave it at that. Are you okay if I ask you to tell that story about when you had someone in your shop talking about the noise?
I call in OSHA a couple times a year to do a voluntary inspection of the business. It's a consultation, which is free by OSHA. And they always provide us with a ton of information for, keeping our employees safe and customers safe. And while she was there, she was concerned with the noise of the trains going by and honking their horns out back. And the employees actually had to wear, I believe they're called dosimeters. They had a noise device for a day to determine if it was of unhealthy factors. She was also concerned with the impact guns and the tools that they use, because some of them are very loud. These pneumatic tools are loud, and we're required to wear ear protection. But it came back, the report did, and we had more interference and noise from the trains that were interfering with the day-to-day activity at the business than we did any of our impact guns or our air compressor or anything else. The report we got showed that when the trains went by was the biggest inconvenience for us, because we can't be talking with a client outside when the train goes by. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with where we're at, but we're right backed up to the tracks on Van Buren and First. And if 20 trains a day go by and they have to honk their horn 4 times each, that's a lot of honking that goes on right at that intersection. And there's a huge echo between our building and Old Dominion and Grizzly's Granola and the battery place. It is impossible to carry on a conversation with someone, a customer on the phone or a client, when the trains are honking. I could not imagine adding more trains and more honks to that corner. It's going to be incredible to be able to carry on a conversation on the phone. If you call us someday and try and talk to us on the phone and there's a train going by, we just have to pause until it's gone. So very surprising how loud it can be right there.
Thank you. Okay. So clearly this is this is really going to affect our neighborhood in more ways than one. So it's something that we want to get on top of. And I think that Janet, you had a great idea as far as getting everybody in the same room at the same time. And so that's what we're shooting for. And I really hope that that happens. All right. So next on the agenda is the election. The general election is actually open. It is next Wednesday, April 9th. It will be, we changed it and then we changed it back because it is the election. We don't know how long it's going to take. It's a really important night. It's actually our general meeting of the year. It's our general membership meeting of the year. So it will happen online as well as at the mission. We talked to the mission. They're ready. They have upgraded their system. They have a new owl. They put in a new sound bar or something. So there shouldn't be a lot of issue with going back and forth and with the sound. So I need to ask, I think that we pretty much have we've already done, Julie did attendance for the year before she left. Mr. Hartman, do you live, own, or rent in the Whitaker? Joe? Can you hear me?
I know he lives in the Whitaker, but I don't know where he went.
Well, we'll ask him again before we're done. The general membership is open to people who live, work, or own property within the Whitaker boundaries. There's no voting by proxy, Stephen, sorry. Anybody who is age 16 or over and has attended at least one meeting and up until tonight from last April has the right to vote in a general meeting. The board of directors consists of 15 people. Like I said, right now we're down to 6. Bum, bum, bum,
Seems-
bum, bum. So I'm sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to ask Margaret. This is Melissa.
Hey, Melissa.
I called in. Yeah. So my partner is with me listening. Is it okay that I include him in the attendance?
Certainly, as long as your partner's here at the meeting, you bet.
I'm here. My name's Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello.
That's why
Thank
Doriandra asked for your last name, but that's okay.
Okay.
You just
Thank you.
remind us who you are, whether it's on whether you come in online or we will have an in-person meeting. And I will tell you, for those of you that have not been to the mission lately, it's very different than anything that you remember if it's been years since you've been there.
Okay.
They've completely changed their program. They actually have two programs now. I'll make a little plug for the mission. They have a what you call a life skills program, and then what's the other one, Doriandra?
R3 or R cubed.
R cubed. One of them is more of the you have to go to church and do this, that, and the other thing, and the other one is not. So they let you pick the path that you want to go. The people live there. You can show up if you're high, if you're intoxicated. Doesn't matter. They don't turn anybody away. They keep you in a separate facility for 14 days, and you have to remain sober. Once you're there for 14 days and you've remained sober, they give you the option of which program that you want to take. And they just last week did a huge graduation where people got apartments, they got jobs. They have a beautiful commercial kitchen there where they teach people how to be sous chefs. They have guest chefs come in. They had some famous chef in there just a few months ago when we were there. I mean, the program that they have is amazing. And that's part of what we're doing with the mission and with the Healthy Homes Grant, and with them helping with what we're doing once we get started, is they are all participating. They're all participating. It's a class and they get credit for it. So the mission is a great spot. And they feed us, which is nice. And they don't charge us. I also found out by going to meetings with other boards, I think we are the only neighborhood council that does not pay to have a meeting at a facility, and the mission offers us their space for free. So that's a big deal. First we elect the officers. There's the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, and the treasurer. Did you have a comment, Tim?
Well, I was wondering the classifications of what's a neighbor and what's working. I know that there's a lot of people who work for Neighbors versus, Feeding Neighbors, who do a lot of volunteer work in the Whitaker, and I'm assuming that qualifies them as work. Is that right? And also homeless people. There's homeless people who live in the Whitaker,
we when Chris Gatsby was the chair, we had a homeless guy on the board.
Okay.
He was an unhoused guy. We've never had there.
So I guess my question is, like, can the Feeding Neighbors qualify because they're working here on Washington Jefferson Park? Are they able to vote?
Did they come to a meeting and sign in and give their name?
They have. During that riotous one that happened.
And they gave their name.
I don't know.
See, I'm gonna tell you, most of those people that were there had masks over their face.
Oh, I don't know what that is, but people gave their name. Hopefully they will. We'll see. But I'm just wondering what the qualifications are. And those are the main
qualifications are that you've been to a meeting within the last year, that you work, that you work own property.
You work. How do you work? You work for a nonprofit? Is that okay? Like Neighbors Feeding Neighbors?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. my main question there.
But you have to have been to a meeting and be on, and we take attendance at every meeting, and that's why we ask. I mean, you saw tonight how we took attendance.
And then also the park at Scobert Park, when they gave a presentation there this summer. If you went to that, that was created by the WCC, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that wasn't a general meeting, so no, that doesn't count.
Okay. Good. That's
No,
it
that
for me.
was, we had music in the park as something else that the WCC created, but just
Yeah.
because you showed up at the music in the park doesn't mean that, that you came to a meeting. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. You're at a meeting right now, so you get to come vote. How about
Yeah,
that?
well, I'm here.
I realize that. Good night, Chris. Justin, you have a question? Justin?
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wonderful. So I was going to ask in regards to attending a meeting to be able to vote, if the number of meetings are decreased, won't that make it more difficult for people to be able to vote?
Yes, it will. That's why we're talking about it now. That's why I brought it up in a meeting. That's why we didn't just say this is what we're going to do. This is a decision that the neighborhood has to make together. So I will tell you, if you're on the board, if you are a board member, you're fine as a board member as long as you don't miss 3 meetings in a row. But being a board member, and it's not just, we're talking about one person coming to one meeting in a year. With board members, you're talking about coming to 2 meetings a month and having to plan them and going to committee meetings. So, how much do you want out of your board? We have an opportunity to work and focus on things like the train, like our unhoused situation.
Would it be possible to consider if people serve on committees that attending committee meetings could also count as a council meeting in regards to being able to vote?
Well, what I will tell you about that is that all I have is our charter. Right here, this is our charter. So I just know what our charter says.
So we would need to amend the charter if we
right,
wanted to
and
change
that's not an easy thing to do. Our charter, actually, it's kind of crazy because we spent some time trying to amend the charter and rewrite a charter, and then I found out last year that the city actually wrote a general charter for every neighborhood association, and it's just a general charter, and they wanted every neighborhood association to adopt it and then create their own amendments on it. The problem that we face with that is that our charter is combined between being a nonprofit association and a neighborhood association. So anything that we do has to be for both. So we couldn't adopt the new charter because it doesn't it doesn't work for our 501c3 nonprofit. And in order for us to write a new charter, we need thousands of dollars because we have to pay a lawyer to do it, which we already did once, come to find out, but that really didn't work. That was before I was the chair. So it's a bit more complicated than just changing the charter. The charter says 4 meetings a year. We do once a month because that's what it was when I joined the council 6 years ago. I was an at-large member for 5 years. And we've always done them once a month. but there's not a lot of participation and it's a lot of work. And we have a lot of issues, and rather than having one meeting where we're struggling to figure out what to talk about and how to bring people in, you know, having committee meetings and coming together once a quarter just makes more sense as far as getting things done within the neighborhood. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I will think about responses for next time.
Yeah, and those are great, you know, those are great questions. I didn't think about that, but you're absolutely right. But, you know, we're talking about a whole year to make one meeting, you know, if it's a priority. And some people that will come and vote will only have been to one meeting. But me, I have to be at 24 just of these kind of meetings. That's 2 a month. Well, except for July and December, so 20. And that doesn't include all the other meetings. Joe? Mr. Hartman?
Okay, I think I figured it out.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
So in response to your question, yes, I live in the Whitaker.
Okay, great. We'll make sure that Doriandra gets that down. And did you have any comments about what I was talking about so far, or can I just keep running through this?
Keep on going.
Okay, great. So first we elect the officers: chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer. The function of the chair is to chair all meetings, to ensure the agendas are planned and meetings are chaired and generally overseen, and generally oversee the activities of the council. She may appoint people to represent the council before any public agency and appoint special committees. The chair shall be the primary contact person and liaison with the city, except in the case that the chair appoints someone else. Hence, when I became board chair, Thea was the board liaison with Parks and Rec in the city, and Thea still is. Vice chair shall be responsible for the duties of the chair in case of their absence, and the vice chair may assist the chair in generally overseeing the activities of the council as mutually agreed by the chair and the vice chair. Secretary shall ensure that minutes are taken at each meeting of the council, and the board shall report and take the minutes, report them. We approve them. They also maintain attendance, roll calls, and the secretary is also registered with the Secretary of State on the website. They are the person that is the chair, and the secretary are the only two signers on the bank account. Because we are a nonprofit, that is part of what the 501c3 entails. Only two people have access to the money, that's it. And that is the chair and the secretary. And then there's the treasurer, and the treasurer shall supervise the financial affairs of the council and make periodic reports to the board and membership meetings. So basically, the treasurer has a view only of all financial stuff. Something else that we've started doing that's a little bit different that is important is that we have an executive director. In 2024, we hired our very first employee. Doriandra has been with us, since COVID. She was hired as a program director, worked as a contractor, and we were in a meeting with OHA one day, someone that, a connection that she has there. And they informed us that, which was our goal anyways, but that she had been with us for so long that it was time that basically we should have got off the pot and we needed to hire her as an employee. So that's what we did. And we're very proud to have her. She does a fantastic job. She is under contract, and she runs the nonprofit side of the organization. So we're very lucky to have her. So what she does is she takes all of the financials for all of the grant stuff, and it goes into our drive, and every board member has access to go in and look whenever they want. Or if they need to verify something or clarify something, they can go in the drive, and it's all just view only. And then there are at-large board members. Actually, there are 11, I believe, spaces for at-large board members. They shall be elected for a 1-year term by the membership, and the annual meeting in April. Persons may serve more than one term of office. Nominations actually can begin tonight and continue until the election. If the occupant loses their membership status, resigns, or the position is declared vacant by the executive committee, a new member may be elected. We have to give 2 months notice for that to happen. If it, for instance, our vice chair moved out of the Whitaker and we didn't have a meeting, his last meeting was, oh geez, I don't remember, but we didn't have a meeting for a couple of months. And then there was a couple of months where we had till the election, which is next month. So we decided to wait. Rather than elect somebody that would be in the seat for a month.
I think it was September. I'm not sure.
Okay. When there is only one candidate for a position, the majority of the votes cast for that position must be affirmative. So even if there's only one candidate, they still need to run, and everybody still needs, they still need to have more yeses than nos. If there are 2 or more candidates for a position, the person who has more yeses than nos votes. And as I said, remember there are 14 positions for at-large members. Members of the board who miss 3 consecutive board members shall be declared inactive for the purpose of voting or establishing a quorum. Inactive members may be replaced according to the provisions in Article 9, Section 1, and inactive members may petition the board again to regain their active status depending on the situation. And it does say in Article 11, Section 2, the Whitaker Community Council will not meet less than 4 times a year at a time and place designated by the board. And the meeting the month of April shall be the annual meeting. But it is important to me that, you know, that we talk about it as a community and make that decision together. And I will tell you just myself, you know, if the meetings were really active and if we had a lot of people there and if there was participation, you know, it would, people have different priorities, and we now have a lot of problems. There's a lot of issues in our neighborhood. And sometimes we can't get to them all in one meeting. So the idea of doing committees just seemed to be the next best thing. Justin, did you have another question, or is your hand still up?
No, my hand's not up. Do I need to do something to put my hand down?
Yeah, if you just put see at the bottom, see where the hand is, or are you on a phone?
Oh. Uh-oh.
The dots on my phone, the 3 vertical dots.
And Tim, did you leave? So it's really important that we understand that next month we have a list. We have gone through every single meeting, and we have written down everyone that lives, works, or owns and said, yes, I'm in attendance. Today, Jen Hoover is in attendance at the council meeting, and she lives in the Whitaker. So she will be eligible to vote. If we get 20 people that show up and they didn't ever, they never gave us their name, they never said yes, I want to be eligible to vote, then they're not going to be able to vote. So, I mean, I just want to make sure that I think everyone, if you volunteer here, then yeah, you work here. But just coming into a meeting and saying, hey, no, I was there and we don't have any record of it, we're not going to count that. We can't. Does that make sense to everybody? Are there any questions about that? Because, I'm going to be quite frank here. I'm really tired of being the bad guy. I work too hard. Just so that you all know, anybody that's thinking about running, I meet with Doriandra at least twice a week. Twice a week. To run our nonprofit is not an easy thing to do. It's a lot of work and a lot of effort. And we actually do a lot and we make a lot happen. Are you talking, Derek? Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
I was talking, but it was more out loud to my bride sitting here and just trying to.
Okay.
So I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. But I just, we work really hard and we want everyone to we really do want everyone to have a place and have a say in our neighborhood. We have the most diverse neighborhood in Eugene. That's part of why I live here. I feel safe here. I'm comfortable. I can be myself. And I want for everyone to feel that same way. And I want for everyone to know that. But, we are an organization and we do follow certain rules. But I really am tired of being the bad guy. So, do we have any other comments that we want to make? Whitaker Watts. Travis.
Hi, yeah, this is Travis. I'm curious about that was a volunteer question, was an interesting question.
Well, it's been asked before.
What's that?
There was precedent. It was asked before.
Yeah, I'm talking about earlier. There was
No,
the question.
I mean it was asked 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's still an interesting. So 6 years later, it's still an interesting question.
Well, the answer is yes. I mean,
I guess
it's work.
I've got a question. That's why I raised my hand, Margaret.
Sorry.
My question is I would assume that's in the charter. And if it's in the charter, is there anything that speaks to whether or not those same people could be voting in multiple neighborhood organizations?
It doesn't say anything about that. But if you volunteer, in the neighborhood, I mean, that is working. And that's the right thing to say. And I would say that whether it was asked previously or not.
Well, I don't know.
But we did have we've had a volunteer on the board before.
Yeah,
we had an unhoused guy on the board too.
Right, that lives in the neighborhood. I would argue it might be an accurate interpretation of whatever the charter says. I haven't read that.
It doesn't say, it just says live, own, or work.
Right.
Well, that
might need some tooling, because I actually don't agree with a broad definition of volunteer. I mean, work can be interpreted a lot of ways. And I think the point of a neighborhood organization is to have the people that live, work, or own in the neighborhood opine about their neighborhood's issues or the trajectory of their neighborhood. And I personally don't agree with just a broad term of work to imply that anybody that comes in the neighborhood and says, "Hey, I'm working here," gets to be defined as a worker in the neighborhood.
No, well, we're not talking that. I mean, that's not what he's. You know what he's asking. And the truth is that we have Derek. He owns a business, but he doesn't live in the WIT, so he actually could vote in 2 neighborhood associations. He could vote where he lives, and he could vote because he owns a business here.
Right.
Jen?
Yeah. Owning is pretty defined in the charter, right? And work is just. I'm just saying, the word work gets a little loosey goosey when you're talking about volunteer work. There's a lot of different kinds of volunteer work.
I'm not saying I disagree with you, but it's it's not. What are you going to say, Jen? Help me out here.
Yeah, so I think I'm the converse of kind of what everyone is expecting. I get paid to work in the Whitaker about 2 hours a summer when I do cooking demos at the market. That's what I get paid for my enrollment there. But I, especially as we were transitioning into a nonprofit, I volunteer. I bring the porta potty down. Last summer, I do a lot of things in a volunteer capacity. I'm very involved in the neighborhood. I technically live 1 block over the neighborhood line. And so I hear what you're saying, because I don't know that necessarily if I only worked for paid labor, I also work at Burrito Brigade and I'm just over the line. I also used to work at Meiji. I used to work at Tiny's, so I think that
Burrito Brigade works in the Whitaker, though.
Yeah, but our headquarters isn't, whereas the market's headquarters is kind of, if you count the shed behind Nelson's. So I think that I agree that language could use some retooling. But I think
it's a little late right now.
But I think it's going to have to wait until the next, a full charter revision. It's going to need more board members to participate in that work, because it is a slog to do that stuff. And so,
I agree with that. I think that the idea of volunteering, is it volunteering for a registered nonprofit? Is it volunteering for a mobile? You come in for 5 minutes into the neighborhood once every couple of months to do some sort of I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it definitely needs tooling.
It does. And I'm going to tell you right now that most of the people that volunteer in the neighborhood never signed, never registered and put their name in that they were at a meeting. Jennifer, did you have a question or a comment? Hoover? I saw your hand was up. Jen Hoover? You're on mute if you do have something to say.
Are you talking to?
No, I was talking. Jen Hoover had her hand up first, Janet. I see yours. But either she's if you get yourself off mute, Jen, let me know. Janet?
Yeah, I would think that the language live, work, or what was the other one? Live, work, or
own.
Oh, live, work, or what's the 3 qualifiers? Live, work. What's the third one? Own. Live, work, or own. Suggests to me that they're equally weighted in part as far as investment in your community, in the Whitaker. And it does need some tweaking. I think Jen and Travis bring up very valid points, because we don't want, I would think that the charter didn't intend for someone that comes in and maybe babysits their nephew for an hour and is able, I think what the language suggests to me is there's some kind of equally weighted opportunities, meaning live, work, or I keep forgetting the third one.
Well, I understand that, but
Yes.
at this point, work, it doesn't say work and get paid. It says
True.
work.
True.
That's it.
So going,
So I have to do the right thing.
yeah.
And Derek,
And let me add the other piece real quick, is to avoid a coup. Say someone says, oh, I had a bunch come over and help me do a paint party. So therefore, all 20 of my friends all get to come in and voila, all of a sudden you've got a coup going on without any true, well, I don't want to say true, without any strong validity as far as their commitment to the Whitaker, if that makes sense.
yeah,
So
but I can't determine who's committed to the neighborhood and who's not. And if someone comes
True.
in and shows up to the park every single weekend and feeds people,
yeah,
and they're part of a nonprofit, they're working.
that's true. And we
And
don't
it
have
used to be Burrito Brigade that was in that park every weekend. And
we
they
don't
drove
have
around the Whitaker every weekend. Correct. If they're
Yeah.
not on attendance, that's the deal right there. Derek,
So-
did you have something else to say? We're almost done here. Thank you, Janet. Janet, you've done great tonight, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Travis, and there's valid points to all this, but it is a gray, muddy area that does, I believe, circle back and do some tweaking on that. But like you say, too late now. But
I can't.
what is
no.
a volunteer, and are they committed, and have they been attending meetings? There's a lot to say there, but that is something that I think in the future we should revisit and make sure the verbiage is revamped, because X amount of years ago, there was a lot of stuff probably not on the charter because the way the world's changed. But I'm with Travis. It's a little muddy.
Right. I agree. Jen, you want to close this out here?
Sure, and I just want to kind of, in a spirit of reconciliation, and oh Lord, I am on so many boards, and I have been asked to run for this one, and I will, because I love you all and because I've been engaged for the last year. But like, if I wouldn't worry about a coup, I wouldn't worry about infighting and any of these things, because this stuff is a lot of work. And I'm really grateful that the schedule is getting pared down a little bit, because, you know, I volunteer about 100 hours a month at least, you know, and I just don't have as much time, but I have a lot of knowledge I'd like to bring. And this gives me an opportunity to engage and kind of help make sure that things are doing that process stuff. And I can teach, you know, Tim Lewis how to mute stuff and how to unmute, and that'll be great. So I just think like this is a really exciting time where we will have a chance to have the committee that can work on making that charter more equitable and really, like, you know, just all kind of work together for the betterment of the neighborhood for everyone.
Right. First, we have to,
Okay.
before we can change the charter, we have to have the money to pay the lawyer, because we're a nonprofit. So we have to just write the nonprofit bylaws. Which is, anyways, that's a whole nother story. Okay. So let me leave it at this before we, man, you guys, no matter what happens and what occurs, Stephen, you are a rock star. And Tim tonight was great. I thought that Tim had some great things to say. He had some great input. I appreciated some of his stuff about the train. And I tell you, there is not a guy that has more knowledge about the history of the Whitaker than he does. And Doriandra, I we couldn't do it without you. It would not even closely resemble the same, as we know how much work that we did to put it all back together.
Thank you,
So,
Margaret.
You're the best.
Thank you. It's an
All
honor
right.
to.
And we do have a board meeting next Wednesday. that should actually be pretty short and sweet because we're just off to the races after that. So I think, are there any more comments? Are we good?
Thank you, everyone.
that-
Thank you, Margaret.
Is that meeting next week going to be posted? For a reminder.
Yeah, it's a board meeting. So what we do is
Gotcha.
we the first 10 minutes are public comment, just like this.
Gotcha.
And then we just ask for people that are not on the board to not participate in the meeting itself. But they are more than welcome. We talk about finances and we talk about money and how much is in this account and how much is in that account, and it's all public. And you're more than welcome to come and see, and that's where we vote on things. That's where I'll probably get yelled at for saying yes, being a volunteer means that you can vote, but it does. I mean, work, doesn't say what kind of work. Work is work. And that's the right thing to do. It's just you need to have registered. But no matter what happens from this, I hope that we all, take some of this into next year and have a larger perception before we make any decisions about what we do. That's why I'd like to have committees.
Yep.
Thank you.
So it makes sense to have a committee that deals with our unhoused solution or our unhoused issues, including what's happening in Washington Jefferson Park. It makes sense to talk about it and to do all of that. Not that we didn't try to do that, but never mind. We don't need to go there. But okay, have a great night. Thank you. I assume if I don't see it, Gary, did you got that email?
Thank you.
Gary, thank you very much, Melissa. Gary, you got the email to email Doriandra about the healthy homes? She put it in the chat. She's going to put it in. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Oh, there we are.
Did you get the email so you can email her your information? There's a link. There's a thing to fill out.
Right. Okay. Because I want to know where to get the application.
Right. And they actually told us today that we should be good in a couple weeks.
Good.
We're hoping.
So I'll talk to Doriandra about that.
Okay.
And Gary, I put the application in the chat again. If you just click on that link on the right side of your screen, it's there. And if you don't see it, the email to write to is whitaker.housing@gmail.com. But we'll look for your previous emails as well.
Right. Now look for my previous and just send me a link.
Sure. Thank you,
Good.
Gary.
Thank
Gary,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank
We
you all
look
so
forward
much.
to working with you in the future. Doriandra, call me tomorrow.
Thank
Derek,
you. Great
thank
meeting,
you.
Margaret.
Jen, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Derek. Hi, Jen. Bye, Jen.
Vicki Lynn, thanks for coming. How do I get out of here?